I'd like to give you some feedback on the photo design project. You guys have done a great job on your drafts. I hope that I don't come across as negative because I don't mean to be. There are a lot of really good things happening on all of your pieces, but I tend to focus more on the things that I see that can use some changes. So this is Kevin's, and Kevin, I really like the font that you've chosen. It's a good, clean, readable font. The font that you've used for this word, complementary, uh, clashes with the font that you've used for this because they have so much in common. They both have a mono weight. Uh, so the characters look similar but different. So um, you might either use the same font or you might use one that has more differences in it. Speaking of contrast, your text here is very good, very readable in most places, but you need more contrast in the dark areas. So the text doesn't work here where the background image is dark, and it needs to find a place that is lighter. Also, speaking of contrast, it would be nice to have some contrast within your text so that the most important word or phrase stands out as being different and also helps your reader know where your focus is. I have a question about your color scheme. You said that this is complementary, but there's only two colors in a complementary color scheme. So maybe it's this orange and this blue, maybe this part is complementary and you just threw the yellow in. But limit yourself to the colors in the scheme, and also feel free to desaturate or add gray to colors. Uh, the colors do go nicely with your background image. Your foreground image doesn't look like it belongs in your background image, but I might be wrong since you blocked this part out down here. I can't tell if the cupcake was really sitting in front of the Taylor building or not. But that's fine. It would be nice if your design elements worked together more with your images. But it's not a bad starting place that you're using. Be sure that you label your colors. That's one of the requirements for this project. Your cupcake looks delicious. One thing that you might do to make your cupcake look even more delicious is zoom in on it, crop it close, maybe even let some of the edges come off of the edge here, kind of full bleed off to the edge, and that will help it to not feel like it's confined in this space. You've used a creative alignment here, which is okay, but I'd encourage you to try a strong right or a strong left alignment. Since the subject of your photo is here, if you keep the text on the left side, then try a right alignment. If you move the text over to the right side, then try a left alignment. That's it for Kevin's. Next one is Samantha's. Samantha, it's such a beautiful photo, but because it's so small in comparison to the rest of your image, it's not really popping. It's not really, you can't really appreciate how nice it is. So you might make your photo a more prominent part of this project. All these design elements are fine, except they're taking over the piece, and so they're the things that kind of command our attention. I'd encourage you not to stack text this way vertically. You get funny shapes when you do that, and the relationships between the letters doesn't look quite right because of the spacing, and so this kind of vertical stacking just doesn't work very well. Also, you need more contrast behind the word the, and even here in the top part of the word sky. One thing that I haven't talked very much about in class is something that I call a tangent. A visual tangent is an area of unwanted focus. And whenever you have very small shapes, or when you have harsh angles, or when you have things that are too close to each other, then our eyes want to go to those places. And so avoiding those tangents is really important. So there's a tangent right here where that E crosses over this line. Also a tangent right here. Be careful of that. Even right here on the bottom of this Y where this descender comes down, that's a tangent. I appreciate that you labeled your colors, although it's not obvious. I mean, it's fairly obvious, but since everything is down here in this orange strip, the other colors don't seem to be labeled. You might, if these blues are the colors that you want to use, then you might need to make your photo a little different, or you might choose a color from the photo because this blue has more green in it, and this blue or purple, it looks like to me, has more red in it. So they're clashing just a little bit. I really like how you've created contrast in your text. By the way, thank you for that. I can tell you did a lot of work here just trying to make things all kind of nest in together. If you can do that same thing but have a strong line, either a strong vertical left line or a strong vertical right line, the way that you've got this set up right now, I would encourage a strong vertical left line so that you pull these two together, not closer together, but so that the alignment of this is unified with this strong line here on the right of your photo. Always be careful having text really close to edges. So this word orange is too close to that edge. Yeah, that's that. Good job. This one is Erika's. And Erika, kind of like what Samantha did, I noticed that you have really worked on your text. You haven't just typed it out, and I appreciate that. The spacing here between these letters creates a little bit of a proximity relationship problem. If you're going to do this, try bringing your letters closer together. Also, try not center aligning your text. See if you can make it work with a strong left or a strong right alignment. Probably rather than aligning with the edge like you did like most of us did on the magazine, you might try aligning right or left here. And it'd be nice if you could bring these together. You have good contrast between this script font and the sans serif font. It's hard to know in your photo what the focus is, what the simple beauties are, just because there's a lot going on. It's nice that you've got some blurring in the foreground here. That helps a little bit because that puts focus on everything else, but everything else is so big and kind of, what's the word? It's not generic, that's not the right word, but there's just not a kind of a focal point here in your photo. That would really help. It would help the photo to be stronger. Watch crowding text close to edges, and be sure that you label your colors and your color scheme. Oh, I like that your design element isn't overpowering the rest of the photo. I do wonder if you're going to do a treatment like this where you've got this round shape in your text, what would happen if you had some of that roundness in your design elements as well. But just play with that and see what you think. This is Jess's photo. Be sure you label your color scheme and your swatches and they need to be incorporated in as a design element, not just as swatches. This photo is really cool, by the way. It's got a great focal point here. It's not quite on the rule of thirds, but it's pretty close. Your text is hard to read, and text on this photo is going to be hard to read because the photo has dark areas and light areas. So dark text won't work in dark areas, and light text won't work in light areas. And don't just go yellow or orange or green or something here, because any color is going to be difficult on top of this photo. You might try putting your text on top of a design element and see if that helps. I like that you've done a strong left alignment. You've also aligned it here with the edge of the butterfly's wing, and that's fine, but right here where this flower is and the body of the butterfly is, that place is a visually more heavy place, and that would be a more obvious place to organize or unify your alignment. It'd be great to have some contrast in your text so that all the words aren't the same, but that we have that you tell the reader using contrast what is the most important message here. And to make it a little more interesting, because it doesn't look like you've really put your heart into this. You haven't flown to your heart. Kerning is something that we haven't talked very much about, but kerning is basically the relationship between letter pairs. And that relationship is really important. What we want is for the letter pairs to all have a similar relationship. So do you see how the F and the L, even the F, L, and Y, between those letter pairs, that spacing all feels uniform? When you get over here to this O, do you see how that space right there and even this space feel like they're larger than the other spaces between the letters? So you just put your cursor here, and with the type tool you'll be able to adjust the kerning. And again, you'll want to just pull that in so that this relationship feels more similar to the other letter pair relationships. This is Brianna's, and Brianna, your photo is awesome. I'm not sure why it's so strong, but I think you've done a great job making your text not fight against the photo, which is hard because you have a strong photo, but you've also got a strong message with your typography. You've created a strong alignment here with the boxes, and then another strong alignment here with this text, and great contrast between this typeface and this typeface because of their weight, their size, their category. Just fantastic, really nicely done. I wonder about this text also being aligned to something. It's hard because you've got circles here, but I wonder, since you've got this alignment on the right edge here, what would happen if you right aligned this text? Also, what would happen if analogous, since it has a different function than the word gold and lime, if you made the word analogous look different? So for example, what if it was this green color? Or maybe if it was a different size? Don't way overdo it, but it would help us to organize this if you treated the complementary scheme color name differently than the color names themselves. Yeah, but beautiful piece, nicely done. I like that your color palette isn't super saturated. You've added some gray to this lime. Obviously, it's not pure lime from the color wheel, so it just looks great. Oh, and you've untrapped the word by letting it come out of the box. So those edges don't bother me because it feels like it's not trapped by that box. This text is a little more trapped, but I think it's okay. I think you've given it enough space Well, let me take that back. Maybe give it a little bit more space here on the bottom by making this gold box just a little bit taller on the, or I guess let extend the bottom of that a little bit more. Okay, this is Jenna's. Jenna, it's a nice photo, and you've done a nice job choosing a color scheme. This brick color, it's hard because these copper or whatever this metal container might have that color in it somewhere, but this doesn't feel like the same color. Also, you've center aligned your text here. See if you can do this with a strong right alignment, and then be sure you don't trap your text in the boxes so that it's really crowded inside of there. Thank you for spelling complimentary correctly, by the way. Yeah, and then besides just aligning this text left, I would say align it right, and also align the edges of these boxes. That will help them to feel more organized. You have such organic shapes in your photo that it seems to me that these straight geometric lines don't complement the organic nature of the photo. It might be hard to pull off an organic shape as your design elements, but there may be some things you could do. For example, what if you gave these boxes a little bit of tilt, because these plants aren't growing straight up and down, right? They've got angles and in both directions. Maybe see what happens if you gave these a little tilt. I like the contrast in your text. This ampersand has a nice contrast with these other two words. You've given your text plenty of space. You've given them kind of a strong left and right alignment, or kind of a justified alignment. I think this text is working pretty well. So hope that helps. Here's the next one. This one is Nigel's. Nigel, what a gorgeous photograph. My goodness. Really let your photograph be the focal point of your piece. You might look at different typefaces. This isn't a terrible typeface, but it feels dated, and it feels outdated to me. So do some experimenting and looking around. Yeah, you have some strong alignments, which is good. I would align these instead of, kind of stair-stepping them. Just give them a strong alignment. In fact, why not bring them right over here so that they align with this edge? Just bring everything together. You also need the color scheme name. And I don't think there's any color schemes with gray in them, because gray is a neutral color. But yellow and green, you probably have some kind of an analogous color scheme. But I think you might need one more color in there. So look at the color schemes from your text. Look at your typography. Be sure that your photo is the focal point. Right now, this stuff is kind of taking over. I like that you've given this some transparency. That helps it to drop back in importance. I wonder how that would work up here, with this text. Wonder what would happen if you made your text really big and let some of it come off the edges. Just a thought. It may or may not work, but especially if this was a very contrastive font. So, and you don't have to do this, but I wonder about a script, a nice big script that kind of looped, and whatever, that some of it kind of went off the edges and we just let it be free. So live your life, your life would be contrastive to that. I wonder about everything being straight too. It is a good contrast to have all these straight lines, but I wonder your design elements, again, were kind of like in another one that we just looked at, if they were more organic, or at least had some contrastive shape in them, so that there was roundedness or something. Okay, this one is Drew's, and this is nice, Drew, for a couple of reasons. Typically, when we see a picture of the temple, we see a lot of them here in Rexburg. The temple is the biggest and the brightest. So you've given the temple contrast by making it the darkest and the smallest, which is, I like that it's not what we typically see. And that also gives your design elements, your text, some space. I think that your design elements need to not shout so loud, because we do want the focus to be on the temple, on this message, not on these decorations. Okay, so let the decorations like calm way down. Bring them down in size and in boldness and in weight. And it seems like your message needs some more emotion in it. You have some contrast, but I don't feel the beauty of coming to the temple. I don't feel the peace and the contemplative, what I mean, nature. This is such a kind of a stark, I don't know what the message, you might consider who your audience is. If it is, well, let's see, it's probably BYU Idaho students. And you are using a sans serif, which typically speaks more to young people. But right, I don't think you're, at least this text, come to the temple, I don't think that it's speaking the message, the beauty of the act of going to the temple. I think this text down here is fine, because this is really secondary, unimportant stuff that you have to put on because of the requirements. This text up here, let it live. Give it some contrast. Maybe a script, maybe something that will help it to feel more, connected, more human. Hope that helps. Okay, this one is Jasmine's. Jasmine, you have a great photo. It's hard for me to believe you guys took these photos. Some of them are so good. You've done a nice job. The text here is having a little bit of a hard time in some areas being readable. And you've put a little contrast in it. I really appreciate that. What you'll want to do with that contrast is, if you're going to contrast, really contrast. And also, it's a lot easier to see contrast if you simplify the contrast. So, is the idea road and difference, or is the main idea road less traveled? If you can just pick one phrase or one word instead of two, that will help. Also, your quotation marks here, they're disrupting this nice, strong left alignment. And what you can do is either let those come off this edge so that they break this line, but that will bring the I over here so that everything will be lined up nicely. And then Robert Frost is important, but he's not your message. So make sure that he doesn't have the same weight as your message. Make him smaller, for example. Give him, if you're going to use a sans, does this typeface have a lighter version? Your design elements are okay. This is kind of what a lot of people are doing. And I'm not sure the best way to work your design elements in. Your photo's so nice, I kind of wish you didn't have to do them, but I think I would minimize them. Definitely move this top one over so we don't see the corner there. Maybe make them round instead of straight, but experiment with them and just don't let them take over the photo. Be careful of text being close to edges. Be careful of these circles being close to this edge. Here's another area of tangent. So a tangent is where things come really close to each other. These are just grazing like a tangent in geometry, if you remember geometry. Don't let that happen. Move the circles down a little bit. Move the black up a little bit. Something so that there's not that tension and that unwanted visual focus in those areas. And I already said this, but let me give you an idea about how to make this text more readable. If you could darken the photo just in this area, and if you could do it subtly so that it blended with the rest of the photo, that would help this to work. And there are lots of ways to darken. You might try burning, copy and make a new layer, but burn that layer just in this area with a soft brush, and see what you get. I can show you that if you need help. All right, this is Casey's. Casey, I'd like you to consider taking a different photo. This for a couple of reasons. One, because right now this photo feels a little bit stretched. Proportions seem a little off on these two main characters. Also, the quality of the photo is it's not very good. I'm not sure how else to say that. There's a lot of kind of noisy garbage going on, and also the kind of the pixelization or something. This photo just isn't. It's just not a good quality photo. And then I have to say this about typography. One of the rules that we talked about in class is when you use a script font, never use all caps, because the capital letters weren't designed to work together. And so you used all caps for everything here. Everything is all caps when you're using that script font, and it doesn't. The typography doesn't look good. If you're going to use a script font, then definitely use upper and lowercase both together. I wouldn't use a script font for these really small words, because scripts are pretty tricky to read when they're set small. So you might try a sans serif, and you might look for a different sans serif than this. This isn't a bad sans serif, but it feels a little dated and old, and it has about the weight of the script. Something they're not working well together. Maybe it's just because of this all caps thing going on. So when you change your photo, probably everything will change. So I'm not going to give you a whole lot of feedback up here. Appreciate that you labeled everything. I think that you're supposed to completely write out the complementary color scheme name. Wow, this video is getting long. I need to hurry. Kayla, you always do beautiful work. This photo's gorgeous. Your text feels young, and this is a sans serif that speaks to your generation. I think it feels new and clean. Really like that. This is a nice contrast of old style, but still feels clean and strong. I don't know. It's working well, I think. I think you need some design elements. I hate to say this, but can you give me some really simple, non-distracting design elements? Maybe you could use like just the edge of a circle coming in. Whoops. So it doesn't take over, or a swish, or I don't know. I believe that on to is two separate words, so you need space in between. Into is one word, but on to is two words. Also, be really careful not to crowd your text. One of the easiest ways to create contrast in text is size, and you don't always have to do a size contrast, but I wonder if that would help. Right now, this word is trapped inside of this box. It doesn't feel very hopeful. It feels like its its destiny is set and it's kind of enslaved in there. Um, it would be nice if we could let that really breathe. Um, give it some size, give it some space, and maybe some contrast. So maybe hold on to could be smaller. Maybe hold on to could be one line. I don't know. Play with this part, and maybe play with this part. Take it down in size. This color scheme information is really secondary to your message. So let it, minimize it so it doesn't take over. Wow, here's another beautiful photo. Did you really take this photo? I suppose that's possible. That's great if you did. This is one of those photos that I think, boy, I wish that we didn't have to ruin it with the requirements of the project. Putting text on top of it and design elements. But that's the nature of the project. So I would definitely, with these elements, I would minimize them so that they don't take over. These ovals they're really distracting, and the way that you wrote gold, all spread out and big, and tangents and diagonal, that's distracting too. So let it be a lot smaller. And I think you need to put monochromatic in there somewhere, unfortunately. But anyway, this text, by the way, would likely show up better if it was darker, maybe even this black. Although you don't want to bring a lot of attention to it, but anyway, work on this part. And then in here, how about more contrast? You've got a little bit of contrast, so every day is a little bit bigger, but if you're going to contrast, really contrast. Don't let it look like it was an accident. You've italicized it as well, which helps, but really let every day, if that's the thing that you want to show, stand out, then let it really stand out. And you might consider the line spacing here. You see what making this a little bit bigger has thrown off the line spacing. So make sure that the relationships between these lines feel similar. I hate to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. You might need to sacrifice some of your sky. If you really need to put your text in this dark area, then you might need to move your photo up and create some black here where there wasn't black before, so that your text has room to live. You might try your text up in the sky, although I'm guessing it will be most successful here in this really dark area. All right, so thank you for not using all caps with this script font. I'm sorry to keep harping on that, but this looks good. It is a little bit of a kind of a cliche font, but that's just because we have very limited fonts in our lab, and this is one that I see frequently. Alana, I would encourage you to consider what is your main message. So if Idaho is really your main message, then really give us Idaho. Really give that to us. Large is an easy way to make that stand out. You could try a little transparency on it too, so it doesn't take over. But don't let this word and these words be almost the same visual weight. Also, try aligning them, either left or right aligning them, instead of doing this diagonal thing with so much space in between. And try bringing them closer together. I don't know if that's going to work, but right now, Idaho seems to be its own unit, and more than just potatoes is its own unit. So aligning and bringing them closer in proximity will help them have more of a relationship with each other. And then giving Idaho some size, more size, and then maybe making more than just potatoes even smaller. That would help. You do need to have, you can use these as your color swatches, I guess, and your design elements, but be sure you label them and label the color scheme. All right, Kelly made like an advertisement, which is different from everybody else's, but that's okay if that's what you want to do. There's a lot of text here. There's a lot of distractions here, actually. So like all this stuff, and this looks like it's locks, like they do security. I don't know. And then safe moving quotes. I don't understand that. Kelly, to be honest, I sure wonder if a different photo might give you more mileage, because you're going to be fighting against all the little things going on here, all these messages that are all over this van, and plus house, plus just little distracting things everywhere, and there's no focus. You've done a pretty nice job with your typography, giving us some contrast in size and color, in italic, and obliquing this text. But consider a photo that is easier to work with. I guess that's just a thought. You don't have to, but if you use this photo, then find a way to help us focus on the thing that's most important. What message do you really want us to get from it? We can get, the advertisement, safe moving quotes free, same day delivery in this typography. I guess it's nice to have a telephone number. But see, there's just there's so much information here. George E. Walters and Son Security Lock Incorporated since 1949, phone number, website, tagline, name of the person on their house. I don't know. Anyway, think about that. And be sure you have your color swatches and your color scheme and your design elements as well. Right now you don't have any of those requirements. And there's the last one, Andy Williams. Well done. I like your photo. I like the light source back here. It does make the flower a little bit dark, but the sunshine, anyway, it's kind of working coming from behind. I don't know, is the flower bringing its own sunshine? I'm not going to think too hard about that. You have some tangents, so areas where where the text crosses the lines of this, or where the text approaches the lines, the edges of this, you get a little bit of negative focus. I like that you made these swatches very small, and you kept this, so it doesn't draw a lot of attention to itself. It's very readable. Something funny is going on with this text, but I'm not sure what it is. I wonder if sans serif might work better for you, because some of the thin places of this typeface kind of go away, and you just get the heavy vertical strokes. So the little serifs, thin places, are making this a little bit harder to read. And same thing even here at this size. This is a modern font, by the way, that you've chosen, it looks like, and so those thin horizontal serifs really disappear. I like this contrast. I'd make it even more. Really let sunshine be prominent. Nobody will be offended with a lot of contrast. Also, give me some alignment here. And these two lines are aligned, but sunshine is kind of floating out there. I wonder about bringing these shapes off the edge, so that they have a full bleed. They're not just kind of shoved in that corner. And not that these are shoved in the corner, but if they came off the edge, they would be freer. Okay, that's my video for today. I sure hope that's helpful. I wish I was a more engaging video maker. I need to work on that. Hope you brought a snack and hope you find this helpful. I will see you in class on Thursday.